From just one chord to this. What's good guys, B-Sticks here, and SZA has just released a deluxe version of her album and it is fire. So we're going to take inspiration from her today and I'm going to show you how you can take one chord and turn it into something incredible. Now this one chord is a favourite of SZA and it popped up on her 2017 album as well. And one super famous producer loves this chord and has used it many times. Here's just one example of moving this chord around. And yes, you guessed it, today's chord is a major seventh and we can do so much with just this one chord. So let's jump into the DAW and get to it. I'm going to take you through the steps to build it and then we're going to look at how I made this progression and then we're going to look at the sample itself and I'm going to break down all of the techniques that I used to create that sample, and they're all techniques that you can apply to your own samples to level up your sample game. So I started this with an A major triad, and all it is a 3-note chord with an a C sharp being the major third in the scale of A major, and the 5th, which is an E, and that makes a sound like this. Very simple chord that you've heard a million times. You add one more note and that's where the magic happens. Find the major seventh in any chord. All you're going to do is take the root note and just check what the note directly underneath that is, here it being G sharp, and then you can leave it underneath the root if you want, just for a different kind of inversion. But in this occasion, I'm just playing it in its root position. Beautiful chord. I'm going to show you how we can just this one chord and make something great with it. Now the cool thing about major sevenths is that we can move that shape around, actually create progressions from just that shape itself, and that's exactly what I've done here, and that's exactly what you heard in front end and in the intro for the weekend as well. Something that I like to do is move major seventh up or down by a tone. When I say a tone, I just mean 2 semitones. So for example, if your first note is an A, you're going to just move down to a flat or G sharp, same note, and then down to a G. And we'll build a major seventh from a G major chord. So here's our G major triad here. And we add one more note and we get a G major seventh. Now listen to these two chords going into one another. Already it sounds kind of interesting. Our third chord in the progression today is just again dropping it by another tone, and we get an F major seventh chord, which is just F, A, C and E. You can hear a really interesting kind of tonal quality going on there. You can experiment with moving major sevenths around up or down. Today I've just gone down. I don't really think of this progression in a key as such, although you can play an A major scale over all these chords, although we're not technically in A major because these other major sevenths are not in the scale of A major. So without getting too deep into theory, just know that you can move these chords up and down and around and kind of use whatever you think sounds or feels good to you. You can do the same with like minor sevenths as well, although we'll save that for another video. So we've looked at this progression descending, and by descending I mean we're going from an A, dropping down to a G, then dropping down to an F. An interesting use of this type of progression, ascending or going up, is in fronting, where Pharrell is just going from a F major seventh to a G major seventh. See what works for you. Create some interesting samples that are not just maybe your bog standard like 1/4/5. Not saying this is majorly different, but again, you don't hear these kind of progressions all the time, but SZA loves this kind of thing. So if you want to get in that ballpark, try moving your major sevenths around and see what you get. Let's move into the sample now and see what kind of source I can give you to take these chords and arpeggiate them and add some processing and take it to the next level. Guys, if you're enjoying this, please go follow me. My handle is right here, and go cop some of my free mini kits. The link is in the description. You've got bass midis in there. You've got all kinds of goodies. So yeah, you know what to do. Now let's get back to it. So I split this sample into 2 sections. You've got bars 1 to 9 and then bars 9 to 17. And I just did some variation between the 2 sections using exactly the same chord progression, but I changed up the rhythm and I brought the guitar in, which you may well have noticed on the sample preview at the beginning of the video. The first thing I think of when I think about scissor is beautiful arpeggiated sounds. And what do I mean by that? I mean sounds that travel up and down through certain chords, usually major 7s, major 9s, or minor 7s, minor 9s, and they go up and down, and I just wanted to start there. Instead of using a progression that I might normally go for, like a 4/5 or like a 2/5/1, I just chose descending major 7s. Instead of playing the chords out in blocks, I started with this arpeggio, and all I did here is I've split the chord into individual notes going up the scale and down the scale. To add weight here, I've just added a little bass note at the very start of each bar here. I'm doing the same pattern, as you can see, up and down, up and down, up and down, and I'm just moving through all the different degrees. 3, 5, 7, 1. The root there again at the top. Then I'm just coming back down through the chord again. You can see where I'm placing each note on the subdivisions of the bar here. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and just dividing the bar up into 16th notes. I programmed each note to fall on a 16th, so 16 subdivisions of the bar. And I repeated that pattern for each changing chord. And all I had to do was just copy the MIDI across and drop it down. So you can hear. I used the About Time preset in the Sky Keys, which is the first preset. You want nice, short, attacky sounds with a nice transient for good arpeggiated sounds, and this just worked really well. I knew I wanted to make it sound more vintage. So you're actually hearing that with the processing on. If I turn the processing off for a second and show you what I had before I put my plugins on, still sounds good, but added some wobble with the Vinyl 1 preset, just turn the wobble up on the RC20. Some shaper box where I'm just doing a little bit of light filtering here, just to give it a little bit of movement. Always add movements to my sound to make them sound a little bit less static and give them some interest. Some EQ, where I knew I was going to bring a bass in, so just wanted to clean it up a little bit. And a little bit of compression, where I was just taking down some of the dynamics out of the sound, and that was it for that sound. Then I just doubled that with another sound with the same processing, but I actually used a pluck sound called Questions this time, and just to again add a little bit more weight. I think I just played it in the same register. You can see it has a slightly different sound quality to this one. Processing was pretty much the same, but I did add this phaser in just for some more movement to the sound. The next thing that I added was my favorite bass, which is, as we all know, the Scarby Rickenbacker bass on this preset here. I just added root notes with a couple of simple fills. I did a pad to just emphasize the start of every bar there. Beautiful Rhodes preset. Just playing those chords in their root positions just every time this chord changes. I think that's a really beautiful sound. The thing about scissor is I wanted the sounds to be quite soft, really like add weight to the main sound, which was going to be the arpeggiated sound. Added a low pad in as well. Also got some shaper box doing quite a bit of sidechain in there, but aside from that, nothing too crazy. A bit of tail chorus, which is a great free chorus plugin. And then I programmed some very simple perks in here. And I'm taking lead from Coop the Truth here, where I'm keeping my whole session to around about 10, 11 sounds. As you can see here, very simple, but actually the less you have, the bigger your sound will be. I added this texture in from Louis. Shout out to my guys. New kit knobs is so fire, and it's going to be dropping very soon. It's a really cool texture, and I just put it into the key of the song and dropped it right into the background. Just add something there, You know, it gives it a lot of texture. Texture is just key here to these kind of really nice vintage, beautiful samples. Added some tape here. The opening A section, then from bar 9 to 17, I wanted to really frame this around this guitar part and change the rhythm up. So how those major sevenths are coming out, and instead of playing full chords, I just plucked like intervals, like the root and the major seventh together, and I thought that a rhythm was really interesting as well. Again, recorded that on a voice note from my phone. I've actually just set up my Avalon 737, which is a crazy like a channel strip processor, and I am going to use that in some future tutorials. Again, this time I just recorded it into my phone and changed up the percussion, added another percussion sound here. This rev spring on it. Texture's back in, the tape is back in. The bass, I did a little bit of a different rhythm here, where I wanted to just add some really cool fills in between and change it up. Really got that kind of indie R&B, Frank Ocean, scissor kind of sound to it. Did some spread voicing chords here, which you can see, like, again, they're just the same major sevenths, but I've spread the notes out quite a lot on the keyboard, and the sound that I used for that was, again, in the Sky keys, just the guidance language sound. I love that. Really dreamy. I really emphasized the phaser on that one as well. And the only other thing that I can give you a nice tip here is I added these two notes on the last couple of bars to just like build up the tension here. This is something that Tyler does a lot in his productions, and as I've said before, tension release is just the heart and soul of music, guys, so really pay attention to that. So hear that, and then it's going to resolve back round to the opening sequence. So guys, if you enjoyed this, like, please go check out my sample packs and check out some of my other tutorials, and hit me up on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you.